8th, 2022 at 8:04 a.m. We are doing the Boldly Me Juniper panel interview.
Thank you, Alanna. Thank you. Thank you. I think that we're going to go ahead and start. We have a good group that's joined us, and it's almost 5 minutes past the hour. So welcome everyone to Boldly Me roundtable discussion. My name is Maria Elena Watkins, and I will be moderating along with Liat Shentser this session. Before we get started, I wanted to share some housekeeping for this event. Please make sure you are muted and turn your cameras off so we can spotlight our presenters. Throughout today's session, we encourage you to get engaged with the presentation by using the React features and add your comments to the chat. We will have time for a live Q&A at the end, so get your questions and comments ready. And this session, as Alanna just mentioned, is being recorded. So let me quickly just introduce the panel. With us today, we are going to be talking about Boldly Me, and the panel is part of the board of Boldly Me. This is a nonprofit that launched a decade ago, focused on providing tools to improve social and behavioral health, build self-esteem, develop coping mechanisms, and empower people to live up to their fullest, unique potential. With us today, we have Senator Dave Cortese, represented by his Chief of Staff, Tara Sreekrishnan. He was elected in November 2020 to represent the State Senate District 15, which encompasses much of Santa Clara County and the heart of Silicon Valley. During his nearly 3 decades in public service, Dave has brought the community together to address and reduce homelessness, combat climate change, expand public transit options, and improve the quality of our public education system. He is a member of the Mental Health Caucus, the Select Committee on Mental Health and Addiction, and the Mental Health Service Oversight and Accountability Commission. With us today also, we have Dr. Richard LaBelle. He is currently working as a psychologist doing virtual therapy for a large HMO and also has a small private practice. In his spare time, he volunteers at Boldly Me as a chair of counseling, helping to develop curriculum, brief PSA public service announcements, and educating students, parents, and educators. With us also, we have Murry Schekman. He is a K-12 school administrator for most of his career, serving as a principal of 2 large high schools, 3 middle schools, and continuation school. He was a director of pupil personnel services in Salinas, and his last position in the world of K-12 was that of assistant superintendent in charge of secondary education in Pajaro Valley. With us also, we have Sumon Kyaw. She met Alanna in 2013 while a senior in high school and chose a topic associated with building higher self-esteem. And luckily, she found Boldly Me. She's had an amazing journey, which she will share later with us. And I'll let her do that herself. Last but not least, we have Alanna Powell. She is a Junivator and a survivor of alopecia universalis. I hope I said that correctly. And she's had to learn coping mechanisms to help her transcend the disease. Alanna has built a successful career in the high-tech industry as a change agent, engineering, and PMO manager, helping high-profile companies like Hewlett Packard, Yahoo, Redwood Systems, Netgear, and of course, Juniper Network. Moderating the discussion will be Liat Shentser, but now we will, and she leads, I'm sorry, Liat, she leads Global Enterprise SE org. We will now pass the time over to Sharon, our executive sponsor, who will formally kick off the meeting.
Hey, Thank you, Maria Elena. I'm super excited to kick off today's meeting. I've been working with Maria Elena and Liat for, I don't know, the last 6 or 9 months as they put together programs that bring us strong and diverse voices who not only have successful careers, but also do something to give back to the community. I'm especially excited to sponsor today's session because Alanna works in my organization in IT. And, as I hire people to join Juniper, I not only ask them the things we need to know whether they have the skills to do the job, but I try to learn more about the person through the passions they have outside of work, because that's often where you learn who a person is versus what they do. And for me, while skills are very important, it's those other qualities that they bring to work that tell you a lot about whether or not they're going to succeed over time. And so when I met Alanna through the interview process and she told me her story, it was clear to me that we had to have her. So I'm super excited to share her journey and work with all of you. And I'll turn it over now to Liat to get the panel going.
Super. Thank you very much, Sharon, and thank you, Maria, for that nice introduction. So this week, as we celebrate International Women's Day, so congratulations to all the women on the call and the men, and focus on how we as colleagues, friends, families, individuals can really unite to help break the bias. We also turn our attention to celebrate women's achievement. And so it's my honor to be able to moderate this discussion with Boldly Me today. We all love quotes. I love quotes. I love quotes since I was a very young girl, and this is one of my favorites and rings true. So, as you know, we all like chocolate, at least I like chocolate. So life is like a box of chocolates because you never know what you will get. And all of us face challenges and unexpected events in our lives, right? And this comes in a variety of shapes, sizes, and flavors. And as we all know, every challenge provides us with the opportunity to experience, develop resilience, and turn them into success. So, Alanna, can you please share with us your personal journey and how you overcame your struggles leading up to your professional career and to creating Boldly Me?
Sure. So first of all, I want to thank all of you, and especially Sharon, Liat, and Mary Elena for actually organizing this for us. The Boldly Me team is super appreciative because we can't do our work without the support of communities and people like you on this call. Um, so I'm going to start the journey with my personal story because if you understand my personal story, then you'll understand what drives me and why Boldly Me is so important, not just to the community on this call, but to our world, especially now that we're at war. Um, I can tell that Dr. LaBelle will end up telling me this later that there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of stress, there's probably a lot of depression going on that actually Boldly Me has solutions to solve. So, with that, let me start my personal journey. So I was born into a pretty normal family: mom, dad, two older brothers, me and a younger sister. But when I was born with a full head of hair. And my mom was so excited. She used to talk about how I had this full head of dark black hair and was just such a pretty baby with this thick black hair. Well, when I was around 2 years old, I lost all my hair and I went completely bald. It sent my mom and dad into a panic. They didn't know what was wrong with me because I was losing globs of hair. They saw multiple physicians to figure out why this was happening. And ultimately, they diagnosed me with a disease called alopecia. My parents, because they were worried about me being bullied and made fun of, and also because they were getting tons of stares from strangers and they didn't know how to react, they didn't know how to communicate to the odd looks that they would get from strangers. They decided, okay, we're going to put a bonnet on her and then start getting her treatment for this. So they I wore bonnets all the time as a little 2-year old and a toddler, And I remember my mom telling me stories about how my dad would prop me up on his hip and he'd run around the neighborhood with me and he'd be so proud of me, with my little bald head, and he'd put my bonnet on and be so thrilled that he had a little girl. But when he got the stares from people, the stares that he didn't know how to interpret, um, it kind of shut him down. And so then they basically started treating my alopecia with cortisone. And I got back my hair when I was about 4 years old. So that experience taught them that they needed to hide me. They needed to hide the fact that I was a bald girl and protect me from potentially being bullied. So I ended up going to kindergarten, and I just knew that it was not safe to be away from my mom's side. So when I went to kindergarten, I cried and cried and cried, and I was so scared. And I remember to this day the fear I had of being away from my mom's side. Um, and then I went to kindergarten, made friends, everything was okay. But every year after that, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade, I cried on the first day of school. And I had a full head of hair. Like, it was all my own hair. Nobody knew my past. Honestly, I barely even knew my past. Um, and then when I hit third grade and I was about 8 years old, I started losing my hair. And then I experienced exactly what my father and my mother experienced. I would brush my hair and globs of hair would come out. And like just I mean, I can't even explain to you like how scary it is to have globs of hair in your hand after just brushing it. And then I get these huge bald patches. And it got to be so prominent that it was impossible for me to. My mom used to color my head with the eyebrow pencil to kind of camouflage the bald spots. It got so large that she couldn't camouflage it anymore. So I remember I lost all my hair and was completely bald at 8 years old. And I was terrified that my friends at school were going to find out and then make fun of me. And I was going to be alone and nobody was going to like me. And I had this story in my head. And my parents had this fear of what they experienced when I was 2 years old, that they would also have to protect me. So my aunt and my mom, they're very positive, loving people, were like, you know what, honey? We could throw a wig on you like that, and then we can't replace your health, we can't replace your face, we can't replace your body, but we can throw a wig on you and you could have hair in an instant. And that thought used to make me so happy because my mom's like, you're beautiful inside and out, with or without hair. And then she and my aunt would sit and they would sew adult wigs into child wigs for me because those didn't exist back when I was a little girl. Believe it or not, I'm 50. So this was way back before they had children's wigs. And so they would sew the wigs and hats with hair on them, and then I would wear them to school. And everyone would always say, "Oh, well, why does Alanna wear that hairband?" My mom would just lie and she'd say, "Oh, she loves that blue hairband." The reality was the hairband had a bunch of wig hair sewed onto it, and that's what was covering up and camouflaging me from the reality that I was a bald little girl who was struggling silently, but nobody knew it because I was a high performer. I got straight A's, I made friends easily, I could fake it, and nobody knew I was quietly really, really in a lot of pain. So I never got counseling. We always hid that there was a problem, and I dealt with it myself. And I was lucky to have a mom who would listen to me. I'm sorry, I get really teary about this because it brings back a lot of hard memories. And my mom would always say, "You're so beautiful that you don't need hair." And you just got to focus on knowing that people will love you, and the ones that won't love you, it's okay because you have all these other people who love you. So then I got treatment for my alopecia, and I got these shots, and they were with hypodermic needles in my head, so it was very painful. And then I got this air gun that actually I still have dents in my head from the air gun. And then my hair came back by the time I was in 5th grade. And when I was in 5th grade, I just claimed that I cut my hair, but it was actually brand new baby hair, and nobody knew my deep, dark secret. And I was with all the friends that I was with since kindergarten. So they saw me through this journey, but they didn't understand or know why. Well, I mean, they didn't even know that there was a problem. So from fifth grade to ninth grade, I started developing my confidence. I had a full head of hair. I was a dancer. That was my outlet, was dancing in the community. And then and then by the time I hit ninth grade, I was a cheerleader and people knew me at multiple schools. And then I lost all my hair again. And since then, I've looked like this. And then my mom had started treatment on me, and the treatment was starting to give me really, really bad headaches. And then I went to my mom and I said, Mom, you know what? I'm just going to deal with being bald. I don't want to get treated anymore. It's just too painful. And my mom's like, Are you sure? And I'm like, Yeah, I'm sure. It just hurts way too much. So then I basically decided at that point, you know what? I'm going to become super independent. I'm going to build a career where I'm financially self-sufficient so that if nobody loves me as a bald woman, then I don't have to worry about being married. I don't have to worry about having kids. I'll just be financially self-sufficient and survive by myself. And if I'm alone my entire life, that's okay. And so I developed this hardness about me. And my mom would say, Honey, there's going to be some special guy someday that's going to love you no matter what. And so then I always thought, okay, there's going to be this one guy, right? But everyone else isn't going to love me and accept me. It's just going to be this one guy that my mom tells me about. So long story short, I went into industry. I got my electrical engineering degree. I studied my butt off because I was terrified of being alone and not being able to support myself. So that's when I kicked off my career at Hewlett Packard. And then around that time I started continuing my career. And then there was this guy from college who came along, and I had dated in college, but I never ever got super serious because I kind of blocked everyone out. Then there was this one guy who came along, and he happens to be my husband, and he wants to make out, right? And so I'm like, oh God, here we go again. And this guy is more persistent than the other guys. And and I really like him. He's super funny and he makes me laugh and I feel good with him and I feel safe with him. But I'm like, okay, I don't know about this. And so he tried to touch my hair. And I'm like, wait, you can't touch my hair. I'm like, oh, and he goes, What's wrong? And I start crying. You think I cried hard now? Oh my God. It was like a river of tears. I was terrified because I hadn't told anyone. And then I tell him, I go, I got this medical issue. He's like, What? And mind you, think about it. We're making out. Like he's kissing me and stuff. And it's like, what's wrong? Like he tells me later he was really worried. And then I said, Well, I had this medical problem. And I go, and I can't grow hair. And he goes, You can't grow hair? And he goes, Okay, what else? And I'm like, That's it. And he goes, That's it? And I'm like, Yeah. And he goes, Oh my God, that's so cool. He goes, Take off your wig. And I'm like, What? And he's like, That is so awesome. I want to feel your head. And so I take off my wig and he starts feeling my head. And he's like, This is so cool. And then after that, he started buying me do-rags, and we started going out on roller coasters and going on rafting trips and swimming and doing all the things that I blocked myself from doing because I was afraid people wouldn't like me without hair. And honestly, that one man who happens to be my husband now, changed my life. When I had got pregnant, before we got pregnant, I said to him, I'm like, babe, I don't know if this is okay because, like, these kids he goes, we're going to have kids. And I'm like, are you seriously? Like, I'm like, what are all the kids going to say, like, about having the bald mom? Like, our kids might not like me if I'm bald. And he goes, are you serious? And he's like, you're going to be the cool bald mom. And I'm like, what? And I'm thinking, you're smoking something. So then we ended up having these 3 kids. And mind you, I was so terrified that my children would not like me without hair that I went through 3 labors with my wig on. I'm sweating, I'm in pain, but I'm so worried that this little baby's not going to like their mommy if they find out she's bald. And my husband's like, you are crazy, honey. He goes, they're going to love you and you're going to be the cool bald mom. Well, mind you, I had 3 babies in 3.5 years. So I didn't have a lot of time to put on my wig. Like, so they actually didn't care. And then there were all these slumber parties and kids were over and they didn't care. And I became that cool bald mom that my husband said I would become. And so, long story short, I'm working in corporate this whole time for different corp companies. And then I end up at Yahoo. And coincidentally, Sharon and Gail were at Yahoo too. And so around that time, my CISO named Justin Samani sits me down. Well, actually, let me go back a little bit. 2 years when I first joined Yahoo, there was a venture capitalist named Stephen Gavay. He owns Madeira Ventures. He helped Larry Ellison start Oracle. And he met me when I was a stay-at-home mom, and then I started doing this consulting with a friend of mine from HP, and he like stopped and he said, he goes, you're a natural leader, and he goes, and you can get people to do things that they don't want to do, and he goes, so I need to know what you want to do for like your legacy. And I looked at him like, what? I go, no, I got these 3 little kids. He goes, no, he goes, you need to read this book by Wayne Dyer. It's called Excuses No More. He goes, you have a gift of having people want to follow what you do. He goes, so I need to know what legacy you want to build. And I didn't believe him at the time. And then I thought about what I wanted. And honestly, I'm a really good soldier. I'll do what my boss says, I'll execute, I'll make it happen. But when it came to me figuring out what I wanted, it came to one simple thing. I just wanted to go out and be bald and have coffee. That's all I wanted. And then I started talking more and I said, well, what I think I could do is I could build this safe place for bald people like me where we can have coffee, we could go swimming, we could go into a spa, and then we could have lessons on how to be bald and how to stay calm. And I had all these ideas, and I took it to a builder to see how much it would take to build this place. It was like $11 million. So I said, I don't have $11 million. But they said, no, you could do it by creating a nonprofit. And I said, oh, I don't know about that. And then that same day, I got a job offer from Yahoo. And then the venture capitalist is like, I think you're making a big mistake by accepting this job at Yahoo. Let's do this thing. And I chickened out. I didn't believe in myself. All those fears from childhood came erupting that, maybe you can't do it. You're not a good enough leader. How do you go about this? And long story short, Justin Somani, the CISO of Yahoo, sat me down after working for him for 2 years. And he asked me the same darn question that venture capitalist asked me. And he says, Lana, I need to know what legacy you want to leave the world. I want to know your dream because you got corralled all of Yahoo. I've got 15,000 employees here, and you corralled them all to do stuff they didn't want to do. And he goes, so I need to know what your dream is. And then I took off my wig like I did for you today. And I just told him about this story that I told the venture capitalist. And he says, let's do this. And then he started just like drill sergeant on me. Business plan on my desk Monday morning. Every week you're working on Boldly Me for an hour. And I just started building and I built it now to the point where we have our curriculum and schooling services, and the rest of these beautiful folks on the call will tell you all about it. But I made it into an engineering project, basically that's scalable, sustainable, and can outlive my lifetime. And that's Boldly Me in a nutshell.
Wow, definitely in a nutshell. Alanna, thank you so much. I mean, first of all, you're not alone. As you mentioned, you have all the people that we're going to talk to shortly that helped and are helping. You're strong, you're beautiful, and we're celebrating differences today. So it's all about it. Wow, what an experience. Really, really inspiring. Thank you so much, Alanna. Professor Schekman, how did you become involved with Boldly Me? And please tell us, what impact has the nonprofit had on the schools districts in the Bay Area?
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you to all of you out there. I can't see you, but I count now 51 people. Again, my name is Murry Schekman. I teach at San Jose State. I retired from the world of K-12 in 2015. I was in charge of secondary ed in a pretty large district. I want to start my talk, and I certainly will answer the questions, to remind the world we've gone through and are still in a pandemic. My experience with Boldly Me and having Alanna come and speak to my classes all took place before the pandemic. I'm in touch with lots of schools. I have anywhere from 12 to 30 counseling interns placed on school sites, and I visit, and I'm in touch with school administrators and counselors. I'm chairing a WASC accreditation for a very large high school in Fresno. I'll be down there in a few weeks, but we're very familiar with that school now, with what they've written and sent my team. It is the most difficult time in the world of K-12, period. I was an administrator for 37 years. It was hard. There were, issues and budget crises and suicide. It is the hardest time now. So, keeping that in mind, I'm, as a former principal, was always of the belief there were never enough resources. Counselors, the caseload average in the state of California is about 477 to 1. So there's no way a counselor can provide the kind of academic support for all 477. But there are wonderful organizations in every community. Boldly Me is really a special one. And when I started teaching full-time at San Jose State, I always wanted to bring in speakers who represent local communities. My future counselor, my future student, or my students who will be future counselors, all gain the benefit of building their networks with people like Alanna coming into school, into my classes. So I brought her into a class called Ethics in the Law because one of my students said to me, "You gotta meet Alanna. You gotta meet this woman. There's just, it's just what she does." And everybody who saw Alanna in her presentation got to feel the inspiration that Alanna provides. That's one part of it. The more important part, sorry, Alanna, is, we've got to have an organization that can run even without the people who founded it. And Alanna has really worked hard to try and make that happen. She is a little more special than other folks out there in running organizations, so it's a little bit harder to see this organization without Alanna. But it is an incredible organization. And here's, as a former principal, I'd like to give you more of my take. I actually wrote an article that was picked up by the International Organization of Social Scientists and Behavioral Research that talked about two organizations and the benefit for those communities, and one of them was Boldly Me. Number one, it provides support. It provides very specific strategies. Students and or adults in a school situation can get help directly. During the pandemic, obviously that was really hard. But before the pandemic, Boldly Me developed much of their curriculum and put it online. So schools can take the online resources and use them at their leisure. I now record Zoom presentations for my guests so I can show them to other classes. And that's a real clever arrangement related to Boldly Me. A few other things I want to hit on is that we now are getting national data about how far behind young people are, that second graders in particular were highlighted this morning in an article I read about being almost non-literate because of what's going on. So think of those kids growing up, being behind, and the kind of emotional stresses they'll feel because of that. Boldly Me has aligned itself with how schools operate, which is not what all agencies do. It's part of what I think is really clever. Every year, California kids take a Healthy Kids survey, and schools are able to look at that data and focus. The school I'm doing a WASC accreditation on, for example, they're concerned, as all schools are, about the mental health of their kids in this pandemic. So the Healthy Kids survey gives schools data. Well, Alanna has aligned herself with the questions that are asked and the outcomes. She's able to say to principals who need to make sure they're balancing their budgets and providing the right services. She's able to say, we are aligned with what the voice of children are saying in the state on the Healthy Kids Survey. Another process I thought that was really clever, California in 2014 made a move to local control. I put it in quotes, there's some issues, but local control means local folks are able to be active participants in the design of a budget. Faculty, kids in middle and high school, administrators, counselors, members of the community districts are required to set up a process. Well, guess what? Alanna has looked at LCAP and is aligned with what most districts come up with for goals in the use of funding. And with the pandemic, oh my goodness, it's so much more important. And then the final part that I just think is so clever is we have a multi-tiered system of support in the nation, and it's a really important counseling construct. And again, you can look at what Boldly Me offers in terms of support and be able to say, well, that's more for level 2 kids who are struggling. And so not only is the information, the way that Boldly Me is set up, filled with love and support, it's really clever. It's just, there's never enough money, but good principals look to resources to provide support for their kids. And Boldly Me came my way because of one of my students. And it's just, I'm not a principal anymore, so I'm not signing those checks. But when people ask me, and if they're in the areas that Boldly Me is servicing, oh my goodness, they're number one. Get going. A few other examples of what's going on in schools. I indicated I supervise counseling interns. They're all getting jobs as interns. 10 years ago, very few had jobs. They're all being hired. Why is that? There's more funding for emotional support, and schools are desperate for the kind of support bringing kids back from this pandemic. There's such an aura of loneliness. And so Boldly Me does it, and they do it in a way that's just like we saw with Alanna, and the kind of love and passion. My final comment will be, I think there were 9 students, Alanna, you brought into my class right before the pandemic. What a community of high school kids that were built at Irvington High School. It's just phenomenal seeing them operate with each other, seeing them show the kind of leadership that they showed. And when you have peers helping peers at a school on the kind of issues that Boldly Me addresses, it's going to work. So the only
Can I
other
add
thing,
one?
yeah,
Can I add one other thing? Is we also aligned ourselves with the Every Student Succeeds Act, which is actually a federal law and requirement. It replaced No Child Left Behind. So we made sure we tied all the loose ends to make sure it was easy for parents, educators, school administrators, hospitals to adopt, just so they could take care of their families.
another clever arrangement. And I don't know if clever is the right word, smart, brilliant, but it leads to services. I mean, I can't show you, but I got a tattoo that says Boldly Me. And then because of Alanna, I'm not concerned about losing my hair anymore. I've been really trivial in my life. But no, I'm just kidding. Anyway, that's my story. I really appreciate what Boldly Me does for young people and their parents. So thank you again for being here, and I look forward to our discussion.
Thank you, Professor Schekman, and thank you for being open to actually implement and adopt a methodology that perhaps was not part of the school or the curricula or what was considered to be the kind of in line. So I really appreciate it, and I'm just kind of, as you speak, reflected on my student days and school days. I wish I was in your class. So maybe in another.
Well, I offer a Zoom class.
Oh, I'm in. I'm game. Thank you. And Tara, before we move on to you and to Senator Cortese, Maria, could you please play Senator Dave Cortese's video clip now?
Yes. Let me get that up. Can you see the screen?
We can, yes.
Okay.
We don't have audio. I don't have audio.
Yeah, I don't have audio either.
Okay, 1 minute. Let me go back to the meeting.
You might need to reshare and click the toggle to include system audio.
And Kevin, where's the toggle?
When you share, there's a toggle. So unshare and then reshare again.
Got it.
It should be at the top of that panel.
Oh, yep. Yep. Here we go. Apologies for that. Here we go.
Still no audio.
I did click the toggle, Kevin. Any other?
I'll
What I'll
just,
do is I'll take my earbuds off. 1 sec, I'll fix this.
and a last resort is I could always share his remarks.
Correct.
Time, and let's see if it works. Can you
For
hear
your
that?
work to ensure equity, inclusion, and high program quality as our community and the entire state works to implement universal pre-K. We know that
So
90% of brain growth occurs before a
This
child
is
reaches
the
puberty.
old one.
This isn't the right
Or-
video.
Yeah. Maria,
Oh,
there's a
I
different.
prefer you do it then. I apologize.
No worries. No worries. So
Stop sharing.
Tara, so you have the video, or should we move to Tara? Maria?
Tara is going to go ahead and talk on his point.
All right. No worries. No worries. So Tara, welcome. As the Senator's Chief of Staff and as his representative, could you please share with us about Boldly Me's integration into Santa Clara's County School District via the School Linked Services program? And if you could also share a little bit about the Boldly Me bus tours advocating mental health.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's really great to be here. You know, my senator sits on the Senate Education Committee and also serves on our state's Mental Health Commission. And one of his top priorities is school-based behavioral health support for students. So, you know, it's no surprise that he's really values the important work of Boldly Me and has partnered with Alanna and Boldly Me over the years to help students deal with stress and anxiety. And one of the ways he's done that is through integration in School Linked Services. So School Linked Services is a program that the senator envisioned to help connect students and family to mental health counseling, case management, and county public health services at a school district site, really with the focus on meeting students where they are at their schools. So the School Linked Services program operates in over 200 schools across 15 school districts in the county. So it's a really expansive program. And the focus for School Linked Services and the coordinators that are called School Linked Services coordinators that make up this program is to successfully close the referral loop, you know, and to better connect families with behavioral health support. So as we're, I'm sure, well aware, when we provide these types of services on a school campus, the results really speak volumes. So a recent study by the Santa Clara County Office of Education on the efficacy of a school-based approach to student wellness found that 100% of families referred for school-based services received them, while only 8% of families referred to off-site clinics followed through and received services. That's why we really have a focus on school-based support. students are 10 to 21 times more likely to receive behavioral health services when they're provided on a school campus. So again, these results really speak volumes. And I know a concept that was talked about earlier and that at the state level we're talking about every day is learning recovery, right? And we really see mental health and support for the whole child an important part of truly achieving an educational recovery. And to even come out of the pandemic, hopefully stronger than we were before. So in that vein, there's a few ongoing initiatives at the state level that I wanted to touch on in terms of student mental health. My senator currently just recently introduced SB 1184, which is a Senate bill to really bring the school linked services coordinator model statewide to better refer students and families. Last year, my senator co-authored SB 224. So this was part of a package of bills on student mental health, SB 14 and SB 224, which guarantee now that mental health be taught in our health courses and that mental health be considered an excused absence for students. So both of those bills are now law. There's also the governor's historic investment through the California Children and Youth Behavioral Health Initiative to better connect children and youth to behavioral health care. We'll see the creation of an online platform along with the expansion of the school-based infrastructure. And in that vein, we're really championing the concept of community schools to, again, deliver a whole child education. And that's through the California Community Schools Partnership Program. And lastly, I wanted to touch on the Mental Health Student Services Act, which is a grant program to ensure county and school behavioral health partnerships, similar to school linked services. So we're really seeing a concept that Boldly Me has been a part of in our county now expand statewide. And there have been a lot of victories over the past few years in terms of getting more funding and ensuring the delivery is sustainable, equitable, better coordinated. And we've really seen a growing commitment for this. I think the pandemic has really only heightened our awareness around student mental health. And we know this was a very important issue pre-pandemic. You know, between 2007 and 2014, our suicide rate for children ages 10 to 4 more than doubled. It's now the second leading cause of death for individuals 10 to 24. And during COVID-19, we really saw a steep rise in our calls to youth crisis lines and mental health related emergency room visits for that similar age bracket. So at the state level, we're thinking about how we can remove stigmas around mental health. I can say personally that our county's really improved on the services they provide to students around mental health since I was even a student, which has really been something positive. We're thinking about how we can ensure we're developing the whole child and looking at our service delivery models to ensure they're better aligned to support children. So I'm not sure if we can get the senator's video, but
yes, we can, Tara. We can. We can.
Okay.
So we can move shortly. Tara, I just wanted to thank you, and of course thank this Senator Cortese. You know, from my experience, the big impact and really significant impact is done when public sector, private sector, and NGOs collaborate together to reach out to disadvantaged community or to those who are in need. So really, thank you for having our back. and help us change the world, and making sure that mental health is not being stigmatized. And I have 2 children myself around these ages that you just mentioned, so it's really shocking stats and shocking data. So I'm really thankful that, again, public sector, private sector, and Boldly Me are cooperating together. That's really good to see. And with that, Alanna, maybe we can play the video.
Yeah. I just want to make a quick comment about Senator Cortese. Senator Cortese and several other senators and assemblymen have backed Boldly Me for about a decade. Senator Cortese stood out because he does this bus tour, and he took me there on his bus tour for education, and I pushed the idea of we need mental health education in schools. And the reality is, he's making it happen. He's making what we talked about a few years ago when I was on his bus tour happen. And he's connected to the federal government. There's pictures of him with President Obama and um, there's several presidents that he's connected to. So I'm praying and hoping that this makes an international impact. So let me go ahead and try and share this with audio. I've done it before. Include computer sound. Okay, so can you guys see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Hello, everyone, and thank you to Alanna Powell and the team at Boldly Me for the important work you do on behalf of our students dealing with stress, anxiety, and even those that are at risk of harming themselves or others. You've shown these young people that they can truly overcome trauma and build strength and resiliency to move forward. During the pandemic, my office made it a point to help fund and assist nonprofits through our funding process at the Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors, nonprofits that were providing direct support to our most vulnerable students and their teachers. And even though our funding was cut due to COVID-19, we were able to invest in nonprofits like Boldly Me that I worked with through our county's schooling services program to help share mental health and behavioral health services to students. The shared goal of meeting students where they are is what initiated the schooling services program that I helped launch in Santa Clara County back when I was a county supervisor. And it's a program that's now working closely with Boldly Me. We must invest in our young people to strengthen their lifelong development and ensure that they're well equipped to lead us forward. Since 2012, Boldly Me has directly served over 25,000 local students. It's helped prevent suicides and helped prevent potential violent incidents on school campuses. As a former school board member, Santa Clara County Supervisor, I'm continuing my work to support the mental well-being of all of our students in my current role on the Senate Education Committee, as well as the state's Mental Health Services Oversight and Accountability Commission. Learning recovery is a top priority of ours on the Senate Education Committee, and we know that student mental health and well-being is a critical component to our educational recovery post-pandemic. So whether it's through well-being and mindfulness classes, partnerships between counties and local school systems, or school site wellness centers, I'd like to commend those of you on this panel that have been working for years to improve the ways we holistically serve our children and our student community. Thank you all very much.
Super. Alanna, thank you so much. And Tara and Senator Dave Cortese, thank you very much. And let's ensure that we continue the partnership and the collaboration.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Richard LaBelle, here we are. There has been a gap between hospitals and schools. Can you please talk a little bit about this and share what stats you see in the hospitals at a micro, but also at a macro level?
Yes, that's one of the things I was looking at to prepare for this talk, both what my experience was when I was working in the adult mental health clinic and also working on the crisis team in the emergency department in the hospital. So if we divide times, okay, we'll go BC, before COVID, things were not good. The numbers were rising in the emergency departments for younger people coming in the emergency department, thoughts of killing themselves, thoughts of killing others, severe anxiety around school-related issues, bullying, social relationships, and it was increasing, and we didn't have the amount of people to support it, either in the clinic or in the emergency department, which is why the need for organizations that do intervention, prevention, education, like Bowling Me and other groups, is so urgent to prevent these problems from occurring. So as I saw these numbers increasing, one of the things about 9 years ago, I met Alanna at a fundraiser that my wife was running. And previous to that, during that week, I had been doing an adult drop-in support group. As a group of adults just struggling with their problems in life, you know, whether it's relationship, marital, work-related, economic. And we did a simple exercise, because that group was particularly anxious that night, a 2-minute diaphragmatic breathing, where you're just breathing in and out through your diaphragm. And everybody reported, oh, I feel so relaxed after doing that. And one of the woman's comments just struck me so hard. Why weren't we taught these things in school? That weekend, I met Alanna. So okay, I guess I got to get involved with this, put my money where my mouth is. And since then, I've been working with Bowling Me at that. So pre-COVID, we were seeing an increase in numbers that we were not able to cope with. Counties, especially, people waiting in the waiting room in emergency departments under horrendous conditions, people doing the best they can. And that's when a lot of virtual therapy started going on, which relieved some of that burden, but still caused problems. During COVID, when I was working in the emergency department, interestingly enough, we saw a large drop in people coming in. Teens and adults coming for fear of getting COVID. I'm not going to go to the hospital. I'm not going to go to the emergency department because I fear I might get COVID, which to me was a very scary thought. Folks are still out there. COVID's out there. People's anxiety is high. It's worse. We know that during COVID, rates of depression increased, rates of anxiety increased, domestic violence, suicidality, drug and alcohol, they all increase. So this is getting worse, but we're not able to see these people. Around that time, I changed my job over at the HMO. I was working with the virtual therapy because I'm getting old. I didn't want to risk myself to exposure to COVID as much either. And I want to kind of slow down the amount of work that I was doing as well, too. So I started doing work with virtual therapy. And during that time, we got quite a few calls from educators, teachers, and counselors. And they were really concerned. I can't see my kids. I can't see I know they're there. Sometimes I can't reach them virtually. They won't come on the calls. And they were very worried about these kids who were struggling and they knew had problems at home. And there was nobody able to reach them. So they started to incorporate some virtual methods as well, using techniques virtually to reach their students. So during this time, we've seen like things change. For people with social anxiety, oh yeah, social isolation, I love it. It's not a problem. But now you're going to force me to go back to the office, or teens to go back, or children to go back to the school where the anxiety is high and they don't have the skills. So as like Murry was saying, not only is the academics, they're not at the academic level. One of the big things at school, we get the social education. We'll learn how to interact with others, both people who are in charge, our peers, and other groups of people. How do we do those? So that part of the education was lacking as well, too. We were really working, and Alanna was really working. Bowling Me is using our Bowling Me Academy, both in English and in Spanish, which is online that people can access to learn skills. We don't do therapy. We don't do therapy at Bowling Me. We do education, intervention, and identification. And I think, like what Murry was saying, the amount of counselors per the amount of students is just the ratios. It's scary how many students are going to get missed. I remember sitting in on a few Bowling Me panels and students coming up after us talking to us about the struggles they're having. They're not telling their parents. They're not telling their teachers because they're afraid of what might happen. But I think one of the big gifts that Alanna and the other people that work at Bowling Me is creating a safe place for people to come talk with these. So we identify these things. So then we can route those students to either their teachers or the appropriate place for those higher issues to be handled. So I think the big push should continue, and we know virtual is not going to go away. Virtual therapy was like kind of frowned upon, telepsychology, but it can meet people in unreached areas, people who cannot come into appointments, people with disabilities who cannot come in. We can connect with people. So even with its limitations, I think we can use that and platforms, especially like Bowling Me, to teach these skills to people. And then some of the public service announcements that we did, like during the epidemic, as things came up, we can identify them. As we weave in and out of COVID, as students coming back in, I imagine that, we're starting to see an increase. I'm just looking at the emergency department numbers, starting to see it back in an increase because kids are now at school. So the kid tells another friend, okay, I'm thinking about doing this. The friend tells a teacher, and bumped up, they wind up in the hospital to get identified and get treatment. So it's an interesting time we're doing. You were mentioning statistics and about the second leading cause of death in that age group is suicide. Worldwide, it's the fourth leading cause of death. The World Health Organization identifies about 14% of 10 to 19-year-olds as having anxiety or depression or both. So we're looking at a worldwide problem. The number of therapists has gone not enough to meet the needs. We don't have enough therapists to meet that. That was before COVID. It's still the case now. The need is even more increased. The amount of psychiatrists, people getting into psychiatry, has decreased due to the patient rate, the liability rate. So there's less psychiatrists out there. So many health maintenance organizations are having the primary care doctors or the general practitioners prescribe antidepressant medications or anti-anxiety medications and then refer over to mental health. So there's a lot of gaps where people are being missed. So I think that's one of the reasons why I really like, especially when we're able to go back into schools with Bowling Me and to identify and help identify some of those students and get them the help that they need.
Absolutely, and also give them the mechanism to cope themselves, and so they're not dependent at all time, at all the resources that are perhaps, to Juan's point, from the chat, not so available to them, and the pandemic, definitely did not help. But Dr. LaBelle, thank you so much. I think for all of us, from time to time, it's good to just pause and breathe in and breathe out. It's simple, but it's so significant and impactful. So just breathe in and breathe out. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Can I add one other thing, please?
Of course.
So you're mentioning quotes. There was one large-scale study done in the U.S. called ACEs, the Adverse Childhood Experiences, which looked at interviewed adults and their experiences as children and teenagers and how that affected them as adults. And about 30% of them still remain as adults negatively impacted by what happened in childhood. So not only in the U.S., but in the World Health Organization, recent release they put out, the consequences of failing to address adolescent mental health conditions extend to adulthood, impairing both physical, mental, and family opportunities on adults. So this is a worldwide issue we're still dealing with.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think now it became much more comfortable and acceptable to talk about it, anywhere from us and people in the street and the Crown Prince of England. People talk about it. It's very important, right? I mean, the more awareness, insight, understanding, help that we can provide, reach out and know where to seek help as well will absolutely be a game changer, right? Again, stats are very, very scary. So thank you for sharing this, Dr. LaBelle. I appreciate it. Sumon, I'm so excited to have you here because Sumon, for those of you who do not know, but Maria Elena introduced you. I'm very happy to have a graduate from Boldly Me. Yeah, so we are very curious about your senior project and how you became the cover girl of Boldly Me as one of the first students to complete the program. And now you have continued supporting the nonprofit Boldly Me. Tell us, please, a little bit about your journey, Sumon.
Yeah, hi. So my name is Sumon. I met Alanna when I was doing my big senior project back in November of 2013. So yeah, it's been a while. I've known Alanna for some time now. So at that time, I had no idea who she was. I just chose a topic that was relating to building higher self-esteem because that's what I was like going through at the time. And luckily, I found Boldly Me through some classmates who were working with the organization. And little did I know how much impact Boldly Me was going to have in my life. So not only did Bully Me help me complete my senior project, but for the next 8 years that I was going to stick with this organization, Elena and the staff provided me with like opportunities and tools that have made me who I am today. Um, in college, I remember when I attended UC Davis, I was in a dark place, and Alanna would listen to what I was going through, and I remember I struggled with like taking care of my mental and physical health. And I remember the tool that helped me the most actually was her teaching me the concept of the love cup. Um, it really like made me realize like what my love languages were and the importance of filling my own love cup with others' love cup. I even worked on a year-long project with two other colleagues where we created an educational coloring book for young children, 5 to 7-year-old, to teach them about the love cup. Because after I figured out like how important it was for me, I wanted to share with others, and I wanted little kids to even know about it because it was so important for them to learn about it as early as possible. So we worked on this coloring book for a year. We had to think of different ways to, present the information. So we would come across roadblocks. It was a hard process, but I wanted the young kids to learn about the importance of like balancing, taking care of themselves and others. So, and then after that, I continue on to help Bully Me. I remember when I first learned the curriculum, I honestly like did not even think twice about like the material. I was just thinking like, oh, this is like another requirement I have to get through to graduate high school. And it wasn't until I started to apply what um, Alanna was teaching me that I realized how crucial all this information was. So I remember in high school, I had a lot of trouble with like having a healthy relationship with my parents. And Alanna taught me that like um, I should just accept my parents for who they were and to look to others to fill the needs that my parents couldn't. And then once I started trying to do that, it really helped me notice and appreciate all the things that they were doing for me. And and I saw that they simply just didn't know how to provide like the emotional support I needed because they were never taught how to do so. And once I changed that perspective, it really improved the relationship between my parents and I. So I'm very grateful for Alanna for helping me, improve my relationship with my parents. And then throughout college and post college, whenever I dealt with like unhealthy relationships or friendships, um, I like think back to what I learned from Bully Me, and I would think to myself like, what do I need to do right now to fill my love cup when I'm going through tough times, or when I feel burnt out? I think back to, oh, how can I be Bully Me right now? So this organization really helped me to like love myself and to realize that there was nothing really wrong with me. It was just I was letting all these voices in my head get in the way of my happiness. So it kind of helped me to maintain those healthy boundaries because that was like the thing that really I had trouble in and prioritizing my own well-being. Those two things were like the main things I had trouble in. So Bully Me really helped to teach me that relationship with myself was most important, and then to continue to try to be a more loving person. And I thought about Alanna, if she can be boldly like her with her being bald, I can be boldly me. So I think back to that too, because I mean, she's been through a lot, and if she can get through it, I can get through it. Um, I remember from like my high school and like working with other high schools, I would hear like suicide stories, and this kind of really made me reflect on how much this organization has positively influenced me. And I wanted other students to be able to get the help that they need for, taking care of their mental and physical health. It was sad, but I would hear like stories of like how much pressure that students had to be, smart and social and well-rounded, to do well on AP tests, SATs, to do well in sports and extracurriculars. they feel really overwhelmed, and they don't really talk about it. And on a surface level, you think they're fine, but inside they really don't know who to turn to. And I think it's important for Boldly Me to provide that safe space and to teach them those tools that they really need. And it's important for us to kind of go to the schools, because a lot of the students, they don't turn to their parents or teachers for help. They turn to their peers. So it's important for students to know the tools and the material so that they can share with each other. I remember in 2015, I had the opportunity to participate in an interview with Alanna and a few colleagues on the NBC News, where I shared my story and I shed light on like this amazing organization. And then after college, I was able to like teach classes and help students from different high schools like Kennedy High School, Mission High School, and Irvington High School. And I could, from working with those classes, I could see that they were struggling with a lot of things. And it made me happy, like during classes, they would come up and talk to me after class. There was this one particular student actually who would stay behind the classes, and he would tell me that he just felt alone. And I would remind him, you're not alone. There's a lot of other students and kids that are going through similar things as you. And I try to work with him to figure out what I can do to help him feel better. So even like instances like this, there's a lot of other students that Boldly Me is impacting that we may not know, but it's kind of important to give them like that safe space and all the tools that they need. Even when we did activities that they thought were stupid, where we would write down stuff, and then at the end, they would write down like their frustrations that they had from the day, and then we would like crumble it up, and then they would rip the pieces of paper, and then we would throw it away. And even doing like a simple activity like that, they would come up to me and tell me how much better they felt after. And I think it's important to encourage like the students to like openly talk about things and to like write things down so that we can all be aware of like what everyone is going through. Yeah, I think like even from the classes, I had classes with the mission students, and they would come onto the Zoom meetings like looking super excited after school. And then we would go through the curriculum, and they would start talking about their hard classes, and then they would start sharing about their like difficult family dynamics with each other. And I would just kind of watch them talk with each other and then just chime in whenever needed if I wanted to like give them advice. But it was just kind of seeing them like that back and forth conversation where they're able to openly talk about like what they're going through throughout the day. And yeah, I think it's important just to like kind of give them a place for them to, communicate and learn that, they're not alone, and other people are also feeling the things that they are feeling, with like being insecure about, their appearance, or, feeling pressure in school, or just like having social anxiety. So there's all these different things that high school students could be experiencing. And it's really important for us to be able to reach out to those kids and just provide the tools that they need, because we never know how much of an impact Boldly Me is making unless we actually, go to the schools and provide those opportunities for them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, Sumon, thank you so much. And you're such a role model. You demonstrate that, with the right tool and the right attention and the right, willpower, you can do it on your own, and you can do it by yourself. And I think you said something really important that, if you don't talk about it, if you don't voice your thoughts, in company of others that you trust, how would you know that you're not alone, right? So the fact that you have the ability and the confidence to actually speak up and make your thoughts, have a voice, it's really important because people can actually reach out and help, and you understand, hey, it's not only me. I'm okay. I can get by. So that's really important point that you made. So Sumon, thank you very, very much. I appreciate the honesty and sharing with us and the audience your journey and your story.
Okay, thank you.
You. And before I move to the live Q&A that we will open shortly, I just wanted to share. I always like to end with micro actions. So we heard the esteemed panelists that we had today on the panel. But before that, Tara, I like to mention donations here, and I know that when we mention donation, the senator is basically leaving his official role. So I hope I said it correctly. Okay, perfect. So the senator is leaving his official role. So we will use the chat to share the link to the Juniper Foundation for Boldly Me donations. And if you're interested in legislative, from a legislative perspective, rather, you can reach out to the Senator Cortese's office to learn more. Of course, Boldly Me is celebrating its 10th anniversary. And we will share details if you're in the Bay Area and would like to join. And with that, we will open up for live Q&A. So back to you, Maria Elena. And you're on mute.
Yeah, I took myself on mute. I just posted the Juniper Foundation's Boldly Me link in the chat. So if anybody is interested, they can take a look at Boldly Me there. Also, Boldly Me, Alanna, is celebrating its 10-year anniversary. So congrats. So once again, thank you so much. I just, for me, life is a box of chocolates, right, Liat? You just never know what's coming your way. There's things that happen to us unexpected, things that, how do we handle? And usually it's our community, right? That, Alanna, for you, it was your parents, and then it was your husband, and then it was, the venture capitalist. And so it takes a village, right? We are one, not only within Juniper, but outside, right? So, and I'm so grateful for those close friendships, not only family, but friends, right? That see us in our day-to-day, right? So we all have our different box of chocolates that we're munching through. So thank you again to the panel. And it's always such an amazing story to hear, Alanna, your journey. So thanks for sharing. I'm going to put the barbecue link in the chat now. If anybody is in that area, and they want to join this amazing event, I think it's in May. Click that link. I wanted to, Juan Ramos, I think that you've been sharing some information. I'm sorry, Juan Romo. I would love to have you, say a few words. I think you mentioned that, that there's been something that you were talking about recently. So come into the conversation and join us.
Okay, so I just started a new position with Juniper. I've been a very technical person for all my life, 16 years with Juniper, and I started a new program called ASC program, and it's basically taking new grads from universities and training them with the Juniper technology and the industry technology, and graduate them, and they become Juniper certified, whatever you want to call it. Now, I've been working in mental issues for a long time, participating with NAMI. I just share the URL. I have a friend with a son with schizophrenia. And my wife works on a daily basis with second graders, and the amount of mental health problems, it's just amazing. It has nothing to do with how rich you are or how poor you are. It's across the board. My wife is part of the bilingual program in Sunnyvale District, San Miguel School, and she's specialized she's a second grader, but she's specialized with kids with problems. But as I mentioned, the amount of resources and in every aspect, counselor, psychiatrists, medications, insurance is not enough. My wife worked around the clock. She loved her job, has been teacher of the year 4 or 5 times in a row. But I tell you, it's not enough. We were very happy that my 2 daughters, they love what the mother learned. And one is a teacher in the East Coast, and she's doing the same with a different segment of the population. These are very poor kids in the age between 13 and 15. And if my wife has issues at second graders, I tell you, between 13 and 15, for obvious reason, because of the hormone system is changing, the amount of mental health problems at that age is 3 times more. And one person mentioned here that I guess it was Sumon, that the kids don't approach people. But guess what? These kids who are between 13 and 15, they rely on my daughter. And they tell my daughter, Paulina, a lot of problems that even because of the legal system, she cannot even pass down to the parents or the school or so forth. My message is the mental health problem is and has been here for a long time. I'm participating in Stanford in the athletic program, and as I mentioned and I share, this sad news that happened with, I'm a soccer coach too, and she was a soccer goalkeeper in Stanford. She was champion last year. She's, if you look at, reference about her, she was a perfect girl, beautiful, super student, leader, athlete, and she committed suicide. So my message to all of us in the company, in fact, I'm doing that everywhere, is that we need to spend time. We need all of us. I'm so excited about what Alanna described and Sumon and people here in the panel, because by the way, mental health is something, it's a stigma. So people don't want to share. You're going to see that few politicians will share, hey, I have bipolar, or I have this, or I have that. So all of us are essential in this fight. So
Juan,
please,
that's so interesting that you say that. One of the things that I tell all the students and children that we serve and their families, and we've served now, I think it's like 26,755. We've stopped 8 mass shooters. These are kids who are starting to buy guns and actually talk about wanting to commit violent acts at their schools, and 202 suicides. These are people wanting to shoot themselves in the head, jump in front of the train, poisoning themselves with chlorine, asphyxiating themselves. Like, I mean, it's horrible. These are people who you would never even dream of having problems. They look just like us. They're hidden and uncovered. But once I tell my story, for whatever reason, they feel comfortable sharing these dark thoughts. And that's when I'm able to give them the tools, give them the skills, give them the resources that they need. And some of them can't go to their families, for whatever reason. And so this is why each and every one of us at Juniper are so incredibly important. I know how kind you are. I know I had a concussion in October. I almost died in a car accident. And the amount of kindness and caring and love that you guys gave me, if each one of us spread that to our communities, to the families that we have impact on through our own current state, can you imagine? Can you imagine how much we could help this problem with mental health going hidden and untreated? We as Junivators have that power. I know all of you, a lot of you guys are all really kind, phenomenal, generous, caring people. If you guys learned these skills and shared a few of these skills out, it would be like pebbles going into water, right? what happens when you throw rocks into water? They create a ripple effect. You would create a ripple effect, and that ripple effect could save a life. It could prevent a school shooting. It can actually stop the violence. It could prevent a war. And this is the power of Juniper that I beg you to harness, because we all matter. We all are loved. And hurt people. So if someone's hurting someone, it's because they're hurting. And so the worst thing you want to do is shun them. You want to talk to them, understand what they feel, need, and want, and figure out how you can, without enabling them, get them to the healthy solutions that they need. Get them to the doctor, get them to the counselor, get them to, a community that cares, get them out of a toxic environment. These are the things that we as Junivators can do. There's like 14,000 of us. Can you imagine the world impact if we did this? That's my ask.
Thank you so much.
And I love you guys so much. Like, honestly, all of you, I can't even tell you how kind Junivators, and especially Sharon, were to me when I had my concussion. They proved me right. I knew coming here was the right thing for me to do, and you just proved me right.
Alanna, and we love you back.
We love you too.
I know.
We're gonna now turn the time over to Sharon for her to say a couple of words before we close. Sharon?
I'm not sure I can follow that act. There's a certain individual in the world I'd like to put Alanna in front of right now. But
okay.
Anyway, I of course, one thing I try to do is, while you're a leader and you need to be strong for your people, I think you also need to be vulnerable, and show people that you're human too, and that you suffer from all the same stresses and foibles and imperfections and everything else. So it's something that's really important to me. I've seen my own daughter, who, anyone who's met her thinks she's a beautiful, capable, can do anything girl. Like Juan, I saw the news story about the young woman at Stanford who, the all-American perfect girl, right? And she was struggling so much. So I've seen, luckily not to that extent, but I've seen my own daughter go through some of that as she was a teenager and a young woman. So, and then when you become a parent, it brings a whole new set of things, because all of those things that you saw about your parents, you find yourself doing to your own children. So, so it's all there. So, but to Alanna's point, we all have the opportunity to help and shine a bright and positive light on this world. So I don't know that we can all do what Alanna did and go start our own nonprofit and create that kind of scale, but we do all have something to contribute. And so I'll leave you with that, and look forward to seeing you on one of our next programs.
Thank you so much. Maria Elena, you're on mute.
I'm so sorry. Thank you so much for to everyone for joining in the panel, of course. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your support and sharing with us today. Thank you. Sharon, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Until next time.
Speak soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. The dog.
Thank you. Bye. Oh, he's so cute.
He was chewing on my hand while I was making closing remarks, so I had to pick him up.